Looking to renovate your kitchen space? Well, start by stitching a bright and festive apron. Not limited to a barista, chef, or favorite aunt, aprons have made a comeback and they can upgrade your cooking and serving attitude. Mary Malari has designed apron patterns for the past decade, reversible aprons being her signature style. She joins us for the second episode of Easy Reversible Aprons.
Nancy, during this program, we'll be looking at full flare aprons, starting with my spoonful of color apron. Daily kitchen time doesn't have to be boring and drab when you wear this apron with its distinctive applique pocket and flare styling. When entertaining in the evening, just flip the apron around for an elegant variation. Both sides feature grommets at the neckline to give your apron an attitude.
Easy Reversible Aprons, that's what's coming up next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effect threads, because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing Designs and Class A Needles.
In researching this program, Mary purchased some vintage aprons, and 1960s was when this apron was made.
The colors are just right, and I was very taken by the spoon pocket. And so I did a new version, and the back is buttons for adjustments.
Lots of bias tape.
Oh, right.
We're not going to go there.
We're going to skip that part. The apron has two main parts to it, the flare on the bottom and the body of the apron. And the spoon that I designed has a little smaller pocket, and it's placed at an angle. You can plan to have either a right or a left-hand pocket.
And you have the bottom open so there's not difficult stitching.
Right.
And I really like the grommet closure at the top.
Well, it's unique along with the shape of the apron top. And then for the evening, we have a great look also. And the apron necktie is reversible, but not the other side of the fabric doesn't show. It's a special plan.
So the feature of this is the spoon.
Right. And the pattern for the spoon we've traced onto fabric. And the other part of this spoon is the pocket pattern, which is actually cut larger than the spoon shape. And we'll remove the pattern now because we're ready to assemble the project. And when I place the spoon bowl, this pocket over, it's larger, and we'd pin it into place, and probably we'd go back and
wrong end, here we go.
Draw around this so we have the actual shape. We can trace the spoon this way. So then what we're going to do is put the pattern tracing paper over this, and now we're going to sew. We're going to use the line of the pattern shape, Nancy, as our stitching line. That's not always the case, but for this it is.
Now this is a non-woven fabric, so it can stay in part of your applique. It's not necessarily paper. And Mary stitched around the shape, and then you can see started to trim away, make a opening down the center, and then you can use your rotary cutter with a pinking blade to quickly do the trimming. I
like to trim with a pinking blade, Nancy. It gets rid of excess fabric and gives a little more give when you turn the seams.
So turning the seams, and we'll just cut it one more time. There we go.
Okay. And then we've trimmed away some of the excess so that we can now turn this right side out. And we're going to do some pressing too to really get a nice clean edge. And our next sample is all done.
Amazing. It's amazingly all finished. And just guide your iron around the edge, and it's ready to become an applique. Now, with an applique, before we need that, we need some fabric. So this pattern for this particular spoonful of color apron has two pattern pieces.
Both of them are placed on the fold. And for so many of the aprons in this series, Nancy, I like mixing and matching. I think that's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to use up some of the fabrics that you might have on hand, just in case.
Just in case you have some
Fabrics on hand, right.
I'm hoping you do. Okay, we are showing you here, you can see the half of it, and then it's been sewn, but this time you put the flounce on wrong sides together.
That's right, wrong sides together. We have a narrow 1/4 inch seam allowance, and then we add a piece of raw edge bias tape, and that goes over the seam, and I've stitched it in place with a blanket stitch in a little darker thread.
Or you could use ribbon or whatever trim you wanted.
Right.
Now the applique is going to be placed here, and you'll have a position on your pattern so you know exactly where to put it.
And that can vary too by your own preference of how you'd like to locate the spoon on the apron.
Mary recommends using a blanket stitch, and here's a close-up of the stitching of the blanket stitch around the edge. You'd use clear thread or matching thread. I'm using contrasting thread so you can see how this is applied all the way around the edge. So make believe this spoon is in place permanently, and then we'll use the other fabrics to create a second half.
This is the dark side again of the apron, and we'll put these together meeting the right sides.
But we also need to add before that the apron ties.
That's right, and these are done easily with folding and pressing. And the original strip is 3 inches wide, and on one edge I've pressed back 1/4 inch, and on the other end 3/4 inch. And now to complete this tie, this is just so easy, we're going to make one more fold and press, and then sew in the center, and again using that dark thread.
As contrast.
That's right, just so you can see. Here is our tie all made. So I made a black tie and a pink tie.
One for each?
Why not?
Yes, and they would be, you'll have a marking where you'll put it on the pattern, you'll pin it to one side, and then you meet right sides together, sewing the two colors, two fabrics together along all edges except the hem.
And I like to leave apron hems open.
How about if we do right sides together?
That would help.
Yeah, it would.
I like to have an open end on the apron, so if I'm out picking garden produce, I can lift the hem and carry things inside.
Now, the last step, we're going to talk quickly about the grommets. And Mary, let's just point out where the grommets go.
Here on this small sample of the apron top, we have one of the grommets cut. A template comes with the product, so that's our guide. We cut the hole, and then we place the two halves of the grommet just like this and snap them together. It's so easy. And once they're established, they're nice and strong, and they're held in place, and they really give a unique look to the top of the apron.
And I think we'll just quickly show you some of the unique styling, because the tie is made so that it has a little extension, so when you see this side, you get all the brights, and when you flip it over, you only see the darker fabric. So it's a magic of the way Mary assembles together. This will give you a preview of some of the quick techniques to make an apron. For baking cookies or creating artwork, this little girl's cover-up adds color and fun to the task. Mary calls this the Little Helper Apron, and you can make this easy-to-sew style featuring two of her favorite colors. Make one side with a stitch-on pocket and decorate the opposite side with a detachable accent. Well, the aprons are vintage.
Right, and we have another sample here.
And this is a nice find, wow.
It is, but there's lots of bias tape on the edges. And when
a lot of work.
Oh, I guess, and it's hard to attach sometimes. But the fun thing in the front too is a nice embroidery. This is all done by hand, but for our project today, we're going to use the embroidery machine.
So here we have the current style made with your little girl's favorite colors. Here we have a blue with a sew-on pocket, and then the big snaps are used at the
And you
top.
could use buttons and buttonholes or a hook and loop tape or whatever. And this is the original shape with the pocket that detaches on this side of the apron.
Now, let's see if I get this snapped on. Here we go, and they cross over. Really, it's quite easy to sew.
It is.
Yeah.
And it stays on the little girl because of the straps that cross in the back. So this is what we'll work on to show you. And we have a pattern cut from tissue, which indicates that we place the fabric on the fold of, or the pattern on the fold. And it has a little bit of an extension at the bottom edge for
down
a
here.
hem.
Yeah, there's a little hem.
And so we have 2 of these fabrics. We'll open this up to show you that, and of course, any pockets that would be sewn onto the fabrics would be done at this point too. And the hem edges can be stitched.
So you fold, there's about a 5/8 of an inch hem allowance. It's pressed and then top stitched. This one happens to be top stitched. So you hem it first.
Right. And then the bottom of the apron will remain open.
So after you have done the hemming, added the pockets, then you're going to add a little interfacing.
The ends of the straps have just a little square of interfacing, which makes the attachment of a buttonhole, a button, snaps, making it a little stronger.
Now, Mary, the next step is to start at the hem area and pin all the way around. It's like...
Right. And then it's kind of like a race course, and then we're going to sew also with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. This, again, easy sewing, Nancy.
Well, you named it Easy Reversible Aprons.
Right, right. And I think with good reason. Here we see the stitching in place, and I would use a pinking shears or a pinking rotary cutter.
And then just turn it right side out. And
that's right.
Probably takes a little time to do some pressing and forming out these edges so that you get it nice and formed. And then you could look at it right now and you'll see that that's a quick apron. But we had hand embroidery on our original, on our vintage, and here we have a button-on pocket with contemporary embroidery.
Done at the embroidery machine, so it's going to be faster and a little easier for many of us.
We chose an easy pattern or an easy design, and it part applique, part satin stitch. And Mary designed this, and you can see this is a close-up at our embroidery machine. It's just stitching away, giving us a sweet design that goes right along with this little apron, but a little bit easier than all that handwork that you saw on the original. So here we have it.
The little helper apron.
And snap it on, and a great gift for art class, for cooking at home or with a favorite relative, and we hope that you'll give this a try.
In the kitchen, the everyday side of this full flare apron keeps you neat and tidy while creating a meal. Before the dinner guests arrive, flip over the apron to its dress-up side, complete with a rickrack trimmed overskirt attached under the waistband. This reversible apron has a split personality.
We've gone through, this will be the 7th apron in this 2-part series on easy reversible aprons, and they still are easy, Mary.
That's right, and reversible with interesting techniques to give them some charm.
This has a faux waistband. It's just top-stitched onto a folded fabric, top-stitched onto the fabric so that you can button on a towel so that when the towel's dirty, you can replace it.
It's a half of a purchased kitchen towel, and so you actually can make 2 to button onto this apron.
The side we're going to spend the most time has that same full waistband, but then a buttoned-on skirt for, these are fun, festive, kind of 1950s retrospective, and we have a little skirt, and then the button-on skirt with a rickrack.
Right, and the rickrack trim is a little unique, so we're going to show how that's done and added to the edge of the fabric. And these are parts of fat quarters.
Now the whole fabric choices that you've made, or the entire fabric choices you make, are the fabrics on the bias.
That's right, for the bodies of the apron.
As well as on the skirt.
That's right, so this is a little different approach.
And we've done this, or Mary has done this, because it adds interest, but this style also fits around, curves around the body better on the bias.
Here we have a yard of fabric folded on the bias where the selvage edge meets the cut edge of the fabric. And we're going to place the apron pattern on this bias fold, and this would be done obviously on the two kinds of fabrics we've chosen, and we'll cut the apron from this fabric.
Now, bias sometimes gets a bad rap, but really in this instance, easy to sew with this. And here we go.
And you can see how the stripes of this fabric have a new look with this placement on the bias. It's a little more interesting.
Yeah, so we have the bright side and the evening side for this. And we're going to spend the time working on the evening side because we just had that same little, or the easy button-on towel for the front piece.
We're going to choose two contrasting fat quarters of fabric.
Now remember, fat quarters are 18 by 22 inches, frequently sold just like that.
Right, and here we make another bias fold, and I've cut these already, and I'm going to set aside two, because actually we can make two skirts, Nancy,
How about
also. And we're going to bring, to form the skirt, we're actually going to place the smaller triangle over that kind of squared off end, and this is how we'll build our skirt, but we're going to turn back edges first.
So just turn back, serge the edge, clean finish the edge, and this is what's done in this area, and then pressed under 1/4 of an inch.
And then we take out the rickrack, and the brighter contrast, the more this shows where we stitch over and under alternating bumps, I call them, of the rickrack. And using clear thread is great because it really is an invisible seam.
So just a little refresher, you can weave this 2 under, 1 above. And it works best to do this as you're stitching. And here I'm just stitching this on, just sewing a little bit, then weaving, top stitching, and you have that retro look.
I'm just so happy that rickrack is back in style.
It just took 60 years, but it's back again.
Right.
Whoop, let me get back the correct piece.
Now, the other thing we did with this piece after trimming it is to fold in a few tucks. What we want to do is create an 18-inch width to the skirt. And so edges are turned back and stitched in place. And then we have a 1.5-inch band of faux suede fabric, and that's sewn over the edge. Very simple, straight stitching.
Now you may have faux suede, synthetic suede in your stash. Mary, you could use fabric too, but Mary, you can just cut through this to make the buttonholes.
Yes, and see, the theme is easy, Nancy,
right.
so
Okay.
that's what we went for this time. So now we're ready to look again at the completed apron, and this skirt has the same look, and we cut to make a buttonhole in faux suede. We just make a cut, pretty easy.
Oh yeah, it doesn't ravel.
Right.
Just now you do this before you sew the two sides together, right sides. You can create the skirt if you'd like, or
Right.
And then this piece, this faux waistband, is 4 inches.
That's right, and that's sewn on. And the ties are, I used grosgrain ribbon for the ties of the apron, and they're attached just to one side under the edge of the waistband.
So just tucked under. So you top stitch, let me just show this a little bit easier on the brighter side. You top stitch that piece to each side, and then it just flips down. The edges are covered. We made the little helper apron a few minutes ago where the bottom was turned up, and that's what we're doing on this one. So we have a free lower hem, and then Mary just stitched around all the edges. So
again, very easy.
Now Mary, you have another option. You can have the skirt.
We can remove the skirt and add another removable pocket. And this time it's constructed in a similar way to the one that we used on the little girl's apron. But if you don't want that skirt, you can just have a movable pocket on your apron.
Perfect for your cell phone.
Right.
So you added a little extra glitz to this.
Right, yeah, I
Now,
did.
we just showed you one pattern piece. I must say that in the reference material that accompanies the program, you'll get a little piece there's a seam right where my finger is, so you can add on this little tie. But simple pieces, not a lot of detail.
Right,
the details added with the interesting fabric.
And the adjustability of the hook and loop tape closure.
Yes. So if you're looking for the ultimate hostess apron for every day or for evening, try Mary's design. In our country, we are in the process of acknowledging the 150th anniversary of the Civil War. There are riveting stories from the soldiers' perspective, and they're a great reminder of the struggles and sacrifices that were made. Women were equally challenged and often used their creative skills to cope and serve. Jennifer Chiaverini, New York Times best-selling author, weaves together a story of love and sacrifice with quilts as the common theme. Welcome back, Jennifer.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
You know, we've talked a lot of books, of your books during the Nancy's Corner section, and today we're going to a different era, the Civil War time period with the Union Quilters.
That's right. I have most of my stories set in the Elm Creek Valley, a fictional area in rural central Pennsylvania. And sometimes I focus on my main character, Sylvia Bergstrom. But in this book, as in some of my others, I like to delve into the past and explore the lives of some of her ancestors.
Gerda Bergstrom.
That's right. Gerda Bergstrom is one of the women. She's a recent German immigrant. But we also learn about her sister-in-law, Annika, and their friend Dorothea Nelson, and then another woman, Constance Wright, who is a former slave whose husband purchased her freedom and brought her to this community.
So these four women are the focus, or are the central theme in your book, The Union Quilters.
That's right. They start the group, the Union Quilters, along with several of other women in their community, to make quilts and to offer support to one another, and also to make other items and hold fundraisers to support their husbands, brothers, and sweethearts off fighting in the Civil War.
Your novels are just that, novels, but this is historical fiction as well.
Yes, that's absolutely right. While my characters and this particular community are works of fiction, I researched the era and the region quite thoroughly, so that although the activities that the women participate in are real, even though they are happening to fictional characters in my story.
You always make a quilt with each, that goes along with each book, and the Dove in the Window is the quilt for this book.
That's right. It's one of the important quilts in this story. The Dove in the Window quilt, well, I chose this pattern not only because it's traditional and true to the era, but also because the word dove evokes peace. And that's something that Dorothea was very conflicted about, because she is a pacifist, and yet she's also a staunch abolitionist. So she's very conflicted about her husband's participation in the war, also because, of course, she's concerned for his safety. So this Dove in the Window quilt is one of his favorites. She had made it for him as an anniversary present a few years before, and she sends it off to war with him so that he will not only have its comfort physically and its warmth and its shelter when he's off on the battlefield, but also so that he will have that loving reminder of home.
Oh.
And this is something that a lot of women
Yes.
did for their family members who went off to fight in the war.
Women's role during the Civil War was very critical. I mean,
Absolutely.
it was really a springboard to their freedom.
Well, it really was.
Not freedom, but their privileges.
And gaining their civil rights, gaining
Correct.
much more of their civil rights. And one woman in her memoir said, "We too were enlisted for the war." When the men that they loved went off to enlist at the camps, some of the men did not tell the women back home too much because they didn't want them to worry.
Sure.
But in many of these letters, a story came of shortages and deprivations. Both the North and the South were completely unprepared to fight a war of this magnitude. And on both sides, there were shortages of everything. And it fell to the people on the home front, who were mostly women, to provide all the things that the soldiers need.
Including tents.
Including tents. The women used their sewing skills in so many different ways to make tents, to make uniforms, to put together bandages, to make quilts not only for the soldiers in the camps, but also for the military hospitals that had to be constructed soon into the war. And also, my fictional characters take on a role that real life women did back then. They not only
Sure.
made items directly to provide for the soldiers, but they also used their sewing skills for fundraisers to buy medicines
Sure.
and food and so many other things that the soldiers needed.
Well, as only Jennifer can write. She writes these charming stories that take place in the Elm Creek fictional area, and you learn from this as well as you're entertained, and you get engaged, you get drawn right into these characters. And I love the part of the sewing and quilting drawn into this, because After all, that's what we're all about.
That's right.
Well, Jennifer, I thank you so much for being our guest on Sewing with Nancy during the Nancy's Corner.
It's my pleasure.
And hope to see you back with one of your other novels. And thank you for joining us for Easy Reversible Aprons with our guest, Mary Malari. If you'd like more information on the Nancy's Corner segment, for example, with Jennifer Cheverini, and also today's program, you can go to nancyzieman.com. You can watch this program again online and also find out more from our blog. Thanks for joining us. Bye for now.
Mary Malari has developed 2 patterns that serve as the reference for this 2-part series. You'll receive both patterns for $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the patterns, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2510. Order item number BP2510. Easy reversible aprons, everyday and elegant. Credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, TV's longest-airing sewing and quilting program with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Rowenta. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.